How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and okay, just to get straight to the point, I want to talk about the Boston Celtics. In particular, how I feel like they went through basically the perfect rebuild. Yet, it seems like there's always something wrong with this team. From 2017 until 2023, they've reached at least the conference finals 5 times in 7 seasons. They made a seamless transition from the Isaiah Thomas era to Kyrie and Gordon Hayward to now the Tatum and Brown era, all while staying super competitive and contending for the title as their young duo rose into stardom. Not just that, but they've drafted incredibly well with their late first-round picks. Robert Williams and Grant Williams both complement their stars very well, and they're great fits. They needed a tenacious defender and rim runner, and Time Lord developed into the perfect player for them. They also needed a tough 3-and-D stretch 4, and Grant turned out to be exactly that. Not only did their late draft picks successfully pan out, which is very rare to begin with, but they were also able to shore up their biggest weakness, a point guard who was more reliable than Marcus Smart. And they went out and got 2 of them, Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White. They re-signed Al Horford, who's arguably the best guy in the league to defend Giannis and Embiid, 2 of the best players in the conference. On paper, the Celtics have everything. Every player from top to bottom is a two-way player. All the role players fit perfectly, they drafted well, they made great trades and signings, their 2 stars made first-team and second-team All-NBA, they just finished the season having the second-best offense and third-best defense, they had a recent winner of the Defensive Player of the Year in Marcus Smart, along with 2 others who finished in the top 10 in voting a year ago. They got the 6th Man of the Year in Malcolm Brogdon. They can play small, they can play big, they got everything going for them. It's actually absurd. So I mentioned earlier that they made 5 conference finals, including 1 finals in 7 seasons. On one hand, you can look at that and say, oh wow, the Celtics have been very successful. On the other hand, you can also say they underachieved and should have won at least 1 title by now with how strong their rosters have been. I feel like at this point, most Celtics fans are probably leaning more towards the latter. The patience is starting to wear thin. Going down 3-0 to Miami, coming all the way back to win 3 straight to force a Game 7, and right when they're about to make history, they get blown out on their home court. I can't think of a more fitting ending to this Celtics season. Anyway, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Starting with their offense, which I briefly talked about in a previous video, but I'm gonna expand on this. In the 2022-23 season, they were 2nd in 3-point attempts and 6th in percentage. Both very, very good, and the 3-point shot has been the center of their identity. Nearly half of their total shots come from 3. However, this team, in particular, has some very streaky shooters. Marcus Smart and Al Horford, but Tatum and Brown are quite inconsistent too. And the 2 of them combined to shoot nearly 17 threes a game on just 34%. Throughout the course of the season, they were able to win a ton of games on the backs of their defense, but offensively, sometimes it was kinda dicey when shots weren't falling. But because the Celtics simply have more talent from top to bottom than most other teams, they can afford to play like this. Cause if one of either Tatum or Brown goes off, they're likely winning that game. Plus, they got a lot of good role players who can go off at any minute. But come playoff time, as the game slows down, open shots are harder to come by, and the variance of 3-point shooting has come back to bite them. For decades, NBA analysts have claimed that 3-point shooting teams cannot win the title. And that theory got debunked during the Warriors' stretch of titles. But they literally had some of the greatest shooters in history on those teams, so they're the exception, not the norm. However, even if the Celtics do shoot a lot of threes, the issue is more so that their strategy on offense is very simple and very predictable, and their 2 stars do not elevate each other. Tatum and Brown are both praised for being very dynamic 2-way wing players, and obviously they're both highly talented, but in reality, they don't benefit off each other. When was the last time you saw Tatum and Brown actually run a play that involves both of them together? When one of them has the ball, the other is standing on the other side of the court watching. The reason you hardly ever see plays run for both of them is because neither of them are great playmakers. Tatum has gotten better in recent years, but Brown, oh boy. Every time he tries to dribble near a defender, I feel like he's gonna lose the ball. Against an elite defensive team with quick hands like the Heat, Brown's weaknesses got exemplified. How can he make plays for his teammates if he can barely make plays for himself? The thing is, he's a very strong off-ball player. Like, if he was moving the way that Duncan Robinson was, he'd be unstoppable. But in the playoffs, Brown's isolation frequency went up from 9.6% to 14.5%, and he wasn't moving around as much as he used to. On the other hand, Jimmy Butler, despite struggling in some games against the Celtics, there are some things he does way better than either Tatum or Brown. He can set up his team's offense, and he's far better at making the right pass and taking care of the ball. In the 7-game series, Butler only had 15 turnovers, while Brown and Tatum combined to have 51. Even if Butler is shooting poorly, he still impacts the game in other ways on offense. When the Celtics' shots aren't falling, it's hard to watch. With how versatile most of their players' skill sets are, you'd expect a game plan that doesn't just consist of passing the ball around on the perimeter until something happens, or just doing a drive and kick over and over again until they make a shot. They nearly lost to the Sixers by playing this exact same way. With all that being said, there's plenty of good things, even great things, to say about this Celtics team. Their defense does not waver. With all the different roster iterations over the years, they've maintained an incredibly strong and consistent defense. In fact, their defense is the heart of their identity, and that's what happens when you don't have a single player in your rotation who's a negative defensive player. Every player that gets significant minutes on this team is at the very least an above-average defender, and quite a few are elite. As I mentioned earlier, in 2022, they had 3 different players in the top 10 of the Defensive Player of the Year voting, with Marcus Smart winning it. Though I think he did get some flack for winning it, because even though Smart is great, the Celtics defense isn't reliant on a single player. Everyone is very long and very quick on their feet, and they buy into the game plan. Most of this credit goes to Joe Mazzulla as well. When Malcolm Brogdon joined the team in the summer of 2022, he hadn't really heard of Mazzulla until he became the head coach after Udoka got fired. But Mazzulla has been an assistant for the Celtics since 2019, and according to the other Celtics who've been there for a while, Brogdon stated, quote, "A few guys told me that he was sort of the mastermind behind our defense and everything in the finals, and his game plan, his adjustments, and his scouting reports were really good." So what's next for this team? Well, they'll have basically the exact same roster for the 2023-24 season, and in terms of trades or signings or anything like that, I honestly don't think they need anything more. Maybe Gallinari could come back and be an extra playmaker and shooter off the bench, but the Celtics don't really need any more of that. I feel like they have enough. It just comes down to the game plan, adjusting the offense here and there, and a full training camp with Joe Mazzulla and his new assistant coaches is very crucial. Remember, Udoka's firing caught everyone off guard, and Mazzulla didn't have enough time to do what he wanted to do, so this will be his first full summer working with the team as the head coach. Of course, the biggest question is Jaylen Brown's future with the team. It's in jeopardy. And you better believe it'll be the biggest story for the Celtics next season. It's gonna be the final year of his contract. He hasn't shown any signs of wanting to leave though, and for the Celtics, any offer they get back for Brown probably won't be as good as Brown himself. He likely won't be worth the Supermax or however much money he's gonna get if he does resign, but you probably won't be able to replace him with anyone better. I've read a ton of Celtics articles and watched a bunch of videos about the Celtics, talking about how they need to get over the hump or doing a trade and going after other players. Honestly, in terms of personnel, the players on this roster, I think they have enough. It's only a matter of time until it all comes together. Anyway, that's all folks. What's your opinion on the Celtics in recent seasons? Do you feel the same way I do? Do you think they already have enough to win the title, or is it time to panic and make a major move? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.